What is happening, everyone? Alex here, standing in a cold grey park in Poland. Let's talk about the nice guy syndrome. Has anyone ever called you nice? I think this is a very valuable topic. The nice guy syndrome, I think we're entering into a phase, and we have been for several decades, of an epidemic of nice guy syndrome. Men using niceness as a sort of manipulative tactic to get their way in life, to find fulfillment in a deluded way, without realizing that actually it's hurting the people around them, it's hurting themselves. Nice is often a good thing. Being nice, looking for harmony in your relationships, nothing wrong with that. I think it's important that we act with kindness, as long as it's coming from a good place. We want to lift the people around us. We want to have win-win, collaborative relationships with people. We don't want to step on other people. But a lot of people can get confused about the labels, and we can use niceness as a tool to rather darkly get our way in life without realizing that actually it's doing more harm than good. So I wanted to talk about the nice guy syndrome and why we're seeing it in so many men, and why it's a problem, and why understanding it is going to benefit you, even if you don't consider yourself to have this syndrome. I have not considered myself to have it, although I've experienced and probably demonstrated and been through phases where I've certainly exhibited the nice guy syndrome. I think it's fairly kind of mobile an experience. It's not something that we're sort of born with. It's something that we can pick up, and we can go through phases of it, and we can kind of move in and out of it. I think it's an interesting topic of discussion, really, really important in this day and age. I think a lot of our problems societally, very, very underestimated, are rooted to the nice guy problem, and how we're seeing men brought up to deny themselves and deny their masculinity and reject who they really are, and prompting them to put on masks to hide what they perceive to be bad about themselves. And what we're seeing is lots of lost, resentful, angry, explosive men doing things that are not benefiting society, and this has a ripple effect on the people around them as well. So I think it's an important discussion, and it's something that I'm going to be addressing a lot through my Untethered Man newsletter and brand. I'm going to be doing lots of workshops on this kind of stuff, helping men rediscover their authentic, confident, dangerous, real, masculine selves. Dangerous in a good sense. I think it's a valuable discussion, and I'm going to be using this video as a kind of introductory jump-in point. We haven't got too much time here, but this can then serve as a nice starting point that we can move into various other avenues, starting from this. So let's use this time to identify what the nice guy syndrome is, where it comes from, why you might consider it an important discussion point and relevant to you, and why knowing about it is going to be helpful for you, and what we can do to address it and to minimize it. What is nice guy syndrome? Well, let's start with what Robert Glover, Dr. Robert Glover, in his book, which I thoroughly recommend, No More Mr. Nice Guy, well worth a read. He talks about where this nice guy syndrome comes from, why it's a problem, why we should know about it, why you need to know about it. Maybe you see it in your friends and family. What can we do to address it? Where does it come from? Well, we look to our childhoods. Mr. Glover talks about how boys and girls, when we're children, we see the world revolving around us. So in that sense, we have kind of immature minds. Our minds are not so developed, and because of that, we have got a different perspective. And our perspective is immature. It's cute, it's sweet at that age, where we see everything revolving around us. We don't see it any other way. And so what this can mean is, depending on the personality, I suppose, depending on the person, and depending on how they were nurtured growing up, certain children, certain boys in this case, in the case of the nice guy syndrome, certain boys can have experiences and take those experiences very personally and bring those memories and those experiences and those events into their adult lives. So for example, Robert Glover talks about abandonment and any kind of abuse or neglect from the people around you when you are young. And if you're a boy who sees everything revolving around him and you take your abandonment personally, so maybe you're even perceiving it to be abandonment and it wasn't even abandonment. Maybe you were just sort of left on a park bench for 10 minutes by mistake, whatever it was, and you might have really taken that event personally. And because of that, you saw yourself as inadequate. Maybe this happened enough times to reach a tipping point where you really ingrained this idea, this illusional, made-up idea as a boy that there was something wrong with you, that you were inadequate because you took neglect personally. You didn't see it as an event in and of itself. Perhaps somebody left you on a park bench and they were distracted. They were talking to a friend, but you saw that as being innately to do with you. You took it personally. And that can be a harmful thinking pattern that can proliferate into your adult life. And you've got many men running about, many adults, teenagers, whoever, who may have had an experience like that. They may have taken something too personally and they internalized that abandonment and they saw it as a reflection of something wrong with them. They saw themselves as inadequate. And because of that, that's the key thing here. This is the kind of crux in the whole nice guy syndrome issue, is that when you believe the false idea that there's something wrong with you, which isn't true because we're all born adequate, right? If you believe yourself to be inadequate and you've got evidence to prove that, made up evidence, of course. Oh, I was abandoned when I was a kid, that must mean there's something wrong with me. You know, someone made a decision to distance themselves from me, so that it must mean there's something. It's ludicrous when you look at that. You're a child. I mean, how offensive can you be to another human being at that age? Come on, right? So you, in your adult life, see yourself as inadequate, so you compensate and you put on a mask. You think your kind of processing mentally of this situation is that in order to live a fulfilled life where people love you and respect you, and by the way, all men want this. They want respect, they want love, they want to be cherished, they want to be admired for what they do. And when they believe themselves to be lacking, when they believe themselves as a kind of throwback to their childhood of being inadequate, I know that I keep repeating myself, but I want to drill the point home. They will see being nice as a method, a manipulative strategy, a clever method, and it makes sense if you see yourself in a certain light. So it's not about considering a nice guy to be a bad person. They're just responding to the state of their thinking about who they think they are. And so they take on the strategy of being extra nice to people. You get, the extra smiley guy who doesn't seem to put a foot wrong and is always there to help people and is always there to support. You've seen these men, maybe you are one of those men. A lot of the reason you do it is so that you avoid any rejection from the outside world, because rejection is extra painful for you. Because if you view yourself as inadequate, then any rejection is going to be felt like a real stab in the heart, because it feels true. It feels like, yes, this is confirmation that I am indeed problematic, right? And so we put on these masks, and that's the nice guy syndrome. It is to live life as a false version of you, an extra nice, shallow version of you who doesn't actually take into consideration his own desires, his own needs. He's unable to properly express himself. He's stunted, and this is bad. You can live a perfectly okay life, but you're going to be struggling, you're going to be suffering, and you're going to be building up resentment, because what you're going to experience is being nice to the people around you you're not going to get the reciprocation you're looking for. You're going to wonder why people aren't respecting you. You're going to wonder why people are walking all over you, because they can sniff out. People are not stupid. People know when you're being fake. People know when you're not being true to yourself. And your strategy of being nice will rarely be met with the desired outcome in the people around you. And so you get very resentful, angry men because they're being extra nice. This is compounded by the single mother. I would call it an epidemic as well, to be honest. Lots of men being raised by their mothers. That's not a bad thing in itself, but it needs the union of a man to create an integrated man, an integrated son, an integrated child. I think there are some great men who are brought up by women, and women are doing a fantastic job, absolutely, but it is lacking on the male side, because what the fathers need to be doing, and sometimes you can have a father in the family who's absent mentally, who's absent in spirit, and that can have an effect on the nice guy syndrome, because the son has never been shown that it is a fully acceptable thing to be a man, to be masculine, to embrace himself for who he really is. And so you're much more inclined to see a society of boys who are never fully integrated into their masculine side, into their fatherliness element of their personality, their self-leadership, fatherliness aspect of what it is to be a man. And so you're much more likely to see more and more men in a single mother society fall into these traps of nice guy syndrome as a result of this perceived inadequacy kind of compounding on itself. I hope I'm making sense here. This I'm going to be using as a sort of introductory video for those of you who want to kind of learn a bit more about this concept and what can be done. There's so many opportunities here. Might seem like a bit of a challenging psychological problem, but there is so much that can be done to reverse this process in yourself, in your friends. Ultimately, it's about rediscovering who you really are and allowing yourself to express yourself. It's about allowing yourself to come first occasionally. It's allowing yourself to be real over being nice. It's about allowing yourself to be authentic over being this picture of perfection in the eyes of other people, which only serves to worsen your relationships, because who are you really if you're not being true to yourself? If you aren't being yourself, you're just letting yourself down, and it's diminishing you. And so the solution lies in rediscovering your true self. It's about understanding the value of selfishness as a means to energize you initially, so that you are able to then energize the people around you. It's about giving yourself the oxygen first in the emergency on the flight, whereas the nice guy immediately jumps to helping everyone else at the loss of himself. So I could talk about this for a long time. It's a very interesting topic for me. I'll be doing lots of workshops and more writing on this, so make sure you're following all this stuff. And if you've got any questions on this topic, or if you want to reach out to me personally, there's all kinds of links left, right and centre that you can follow, and do get in touch. Hopefully that was helpful. I will look forward to your comments and likes and shares and your connections. So I'll see you in the next video. Take care, guys.